much more entertaining, all things considered. And we're trying to do this with ARC, and it's going real well, And you were very helpful there too, that podcast that we did. There were lots of reasons that the climate apocalypse narrative has been falling radically apart. But that podcast that you and I did was definitely one of them, And I've interviewed a lot of good scientists who, they're not climate skeptics. That's a stupid term. And Lomberg's a good example of that.
It's
is.
like climate denier is
climate
right up there
denier.
with vaccine.
That's such a manipulative
denier.
phrase. Yeah. It's like, you're like the Nazis who object to Jews being baked. That's your argument, is it? Really? That's your argument, you scum rat. You're going to use that as a moral lever. That's your level of ethos. That's your argumentation. You're going to take the worst slur you can possibly imagine, and you're going to use it to devastate someone's reputation publicly because you don't have a leg to stand on, because you're the kind of tyrant who uses fear to monger power. That's you. There's a psychological interpretation of the climate apocalypse scandal, and it's killing. It's destroying Germany. It's destroying the UK.
Didn't Germany didn't they shut down a bunch of their nuclear plants?
Yeah. Yeah, and they replaced them with lignite coal. Right, the dirtiest burning coal. So they're in a situation where they pollute more for more unstable energy that's delivered by tyrants. Well, outsourcing their industry to China, it's a very bad idea, right? Who's building coal plants at a rate that is so fast that everything the West does to ameliorate carbon is utterly irrelevant. Utterly irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's an uncomfortable truth that these climate cultists just don't address. They won't even entertain any information contrary to the narrative. They won't even let it in.
Of course not, because it upsets the game.
Not only that, most of the people that are involved in the game don't even understand the game. They don't even understand what's really not just at stake, but the actual facts that they're arguing for.
Well, Carney's a good example of this in Canada, to return to that.
Yeah.
Is
he going to win? It seems like he's
the polls
favored.
Certainly indicate that.
Yeah.
And maybe with a majority government. And I can see why. Canadians were accustomed to having everything go pretty well. And we could be morally superior to you Americans, because that was also fun. And we'll never forego that opportunity. And Trump has provided it in spades in the last month. So we look at Carney, and we don't pay any attention to politics, and we certainly don't read his goddamn book. And so we see someone who looks like a banker from the 1990s, when everything was just fine in Canada and Canadians were just as rich as Americans and the whole country was stable and peaceful. And we think, well, we kind of made a mistake on Justin. Turned out he was a little incompetent, a little narcissistic. And maybe we shouldn't have voted for him just because he legalized marijuana, because that's actually what brought him into power the first time. And so we kind of made a mistake. But now, look, we've learned, and we're not going to be fooled by narcissistic pretenders. And Mark Carney used to be governor of Bank of England, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good resume, and it certainly looks like that. And yet, he believes that 75% of the fossil fuels in the world should be left in the ground, and that there's nothing that should guide your purchasing decision by force other than decarbonization.
But it seemed to me, at least from an observer from afar, that Pierre was gaining steam, and it looked like he was going to win. And they seem to have taken the wind right out of his sails.
Well, two things happened. Trudeau resigned. The Liberals were headed for extinction. It was going to be the worst defeat of a governing party in Canada ever. They might have lost their official party status. So they were done. Well, they pivoted, brought in Carney, who'd been advising Trudeau. He's put himself up as an outsider, a competent outsider, a lot of private experience in the private domain, a steady hand at the helm. It's like, you were Trudeau's economic advisor for 10 years. 10 years. And there's going to be more of the same under you. And now you're pretending to be an industrialist, even though you're one of the leaders, the world's leading authorities on DEI, ESG, and net zero. That's Mark Carney. All you have to do is read his book, which people don't, of course, because it's a book. First 3 chapters will do the trick. Well, now, either he's decided that every single thing he ever believed was wrong right to the core, and hasn't apologized or let anyone know that, and now he's actually Mr. Industry, which is how he's presenting himself to Canadians, or